incredibly consequential victory in Wisconsin, with the Supreme Court flipping to liberal for the first time since 2008. Scott Walker had a take. He's emerged from, I don't know, his gold-plated dungeon paid for by the Koch brothers. It's like, people forget that there have been many governors who were crowned as the next Republican nominee who had a lot of cash behind them. Talking about you, DeSantis, who ended up just like flaming out because they don't have it.
Bobby Jindal.
Yep. I mean, Jeb Bush from Florida.
Chris Christie.
Right. Walker is the OG, though. It's like people, for some reason, especially because there's a good parallel to draw, honestly, with DeSantis right now, because DeSantis is doing all the things that the Republican Party nationally thinks is like energizing. He's just tripling down on culture war stuff. When Walker was in office, he was the godfather of the Tea Party politics, of right to work, of gerrymandering, and like that ended up helping the Republicans a lot. But that was the thrust of where the party really wanted to go at that moment. And right now they're just lost in the culture war sauce. But here's what Scott Walker's take on the results here. Younger voters may be behind the stinging loss for conservatives in Wisconsin this week. I mean, you don't think? In November 18 to 29-year-old voters in Wisconsin went with the radical candidate by 40 points. Digital ads, student coalitions, none of these will do it. We have to undo years of liberal indoctrination. And here's what I'll say. First of all, I love that he pretends that those are these are just like the good faith tactics that his Republican Party engaged in to box out liberal and non-white voters during his time in Wisconsin, when it was just gerrymandering and taking a sledgehammer to unions, which is what did it. But it's liberal indoctrination, Scott Walker, or is it that the youth see no hope for the future under a Republican Party, that they want labor to have more power, that they believe in the right to an abortion, which is probably really what did it in this instance. Like, it just, the contempt for voters astounds me to this day still, that they think that it's all some sort of game of brainwashing, and they're just not doing it the right way, as opposed to, no, what you're proposing is horrible.
Well, Walker's conclusion is really funny, because he says, like, digital ads and stuff like that, that's not going to cut it. And like, what we need to do is undo indoctrination. Okay. How do you propose? I don't know. It seems like a heavy lift, undoing years of indoctrination, if that's the problem. We're seeing something. This has been evident in the numbers for years now. That is, as far as I know, unprecedented in like the Anglosphere politics, specifically in the US and the UK, which is that like a generation of voters is not getting more conservative as they enter adulthood and enter middle age.
Right. They're not going down the boomer route.
They're not going down the boomer route. And I think that for a long time, people on the right sort of assumed that what would happen is that everyone would grow up and turn right wing, just because they just thought that was a law of nature. And as that has not happened, it has intensified this sort of war on the young that defines a lot of conservative politics now, which is funny, because then it becomes this really sort of clear feedback loop, right? Like, a lot of conservative politics is sort of open warfare on the priorities and often the rights of young people, and then out of the other side of their mouth, they're like, the young hate us because of left-wing professors. Like, right. That's what they're, like they organize their politics around, completely stymieing anything young people want, and then blaming indoctrination for the fact they're hated.
Bradley, actually, because it's funny you mentioned that, because I was just looking at that graph again, And I'm reminded with that Arizona figure being so huge.
Yeah.
This is, I guess, a Brookings graph. That Arizona margin being so massive for young voters in terms of the biggest for Senate elections, I guess, in last year. That is an immense failure on behalf of the whole indoctrination industrial complex led by someone called Charlie Kirk, whose whole damn philosophy is about going to college campuses and convincing kids that the conservative agenda is correct, and he gets a boatload of money to do it. And Arizona was his ground zero. Arizona was the place where he was putting most of his focus and, I believe, money for Kari Lake and such. And literally, it's like it is almost as if his efforts made it worse.
Yeah, like. Yes, yeah.
But he'll still get a boatload of money from Republican donors because they will buy into the premise that Scott Walker is laying out there, that all you need is just a little bit more indoctrination on our side, and then young voters will be convinced that we should gut Medicare and also that trans people are demonic.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's the no, it's the children who are wrong campaign.
Yeah.
But it speaks to, again, how I think easy the grift is on the right. Like you can get a lot of money from old rich people by saying, I will go to college campuses and defeat liberal indoctrination, and you show no results. And there's something there have been people on the right who have been trying for years to sound alarm bells about how they're losing a generation of voters, and like Trump set that back years because by winning, essentially, right? Like it was the same as, the famous like RNC postmortem or whatever. Like the Trump victory just like allowed so many people in the Republican Party to be like, no, what we're doing is working, and I think they don't have another strategy beyond Charlie Kirk. Like I don't know what their plan B is.
Well, here I didn't even realize this, but thank you to PGH Pete for pointing this out. Put this tweet back up, because right beneath it, I did not even realize this. This is Scott Walker launching his own thing. So here, scroll down here. That is why I am leading a new effort at YAF to counter the impact of radicals on campus.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, great. So this is just all part of your grift. He's just doing the Charlie Kirk thing, except he just might have a Young America's Foundation to inspire students to become bold advocates for freedom on campus, and their head photo has Ben Shapiro, Scott Walker, Matt Walsh, etc. Like, this is just their version of the Charlie Kirk grift.
Where that Matt Walsh video we watched yesterday, Emma, where that trans person confronted him, that's a YAF event.
There we go. So again, I mean, honestly, this is a way for them to make money, and also, and there's going to be a bunch of old billionaire or multimillionaire donors who are like, yes, like we just need to teach the kids about hard work. Here's $3 million, Scott Walker.
If you want to talk about how this effort kind of backfires, like one funny way that it does is that what all of these campus right-wing groups kind of do is attract the biggest weirdos on campus. And then the biggest weirdos on campus go on to work in Republican politics and advise people like Ron DeSantis. And I think it's actually starting to be something people notice, because there was this conventional wisdom for the last few years that, Democrats had too many nutty left-wing young staffers that were making them do nutty left-wing things. But when you actually look at who's being advised by weird nuts that want to do unpopular things in American politics? Like maybe it's like every single prominent Republican,
right?
and so they're training. They're like not just training, but they're like identifying the most repellent people under 30, like America's most repellent young people. All of this money is going to identify them and send them right into Republican politics to like ensure that the Republican politics remains as off-putting as possible for years to come.